Hey. Welcome back to MedLysisTalks, your go-to for unfiltered conversations about medicine, health, and everything in between. I am Mansi Bhatia.
And I'm Kivi Kohli. And today's episode, it's going to be a good one. We're talking all things fertility with someone who's breaking the stigma and keeping it real.
Say hello to Dr. Kaajal Abrol. She's a rock star fertility specialist based right here in Toronto. She did her residency and fellowship at the University of Toronto. Woohoo! And now she helps individuals and couples navigate their fertility journey with empathy and expertise.
She's also super active on Instagram. We'll link her Instagram in the description, but if you're wondering, it's at Kaajal Abrol MD. And she also hosts a podcast called Fertility Doc Talks. And she also gave a TEDx talk on fertility, age, and why reproductive education needs to be talked about more.
We are so excited to have her with us today. Welcome to Medlysis Talks, Dr. Abrol.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to chat with both of you today.
Okay, to start off, we have to hear your origin story. What pulled you into the world of fertility medicine? Was it a Grey's Anatomy moment or something deeper?
I'd love to say it's a really juicy Grey's Anatomy moment, but unfortunately, I don't think that's what I'm going to be sharing today. My foray into reproductive medicine was more of a journey. I actually went into medical school thinking I wanted to work with children and be a pediatrician. But in my clinical rotations in medical school, I was exposed to obstetrics and gynecology and really fell in love. I loved women's health, caring for women, helping women, delivering babies. All of it really appealed to me. I love the procedural aspect and surgery. So that's what first got me into it. And then when I started my residency in obstetrics and gynecology, I had an amazing experience working with and meeting a reproductive endocrinologist. And that's really where I was first exposed to this particular area of gynecology and truly fell in love. I love all the pathways and the science, it just made sense. Again, lots of procedural aspects to this field, which I enjoyed. And more than anything, I loved the role we played in helping people start their families, build their families. All of it was really sort of interesting and special.
Now that
Okay,
you're in it, Dr. Abrol, it sounds like a beautiful journey that you've taken to get here. You've seen the egg freezing conversation explode. Who do you think is the ideal candidate for egg freezing, and what should they really think about before jumping in?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question. Quite honestly, I think if you brought 10 fertility doctors into a room, you're going to get 10 different answers. But today you get to get my answer. And I really think the most important factor in considering egg freezing and thinking about egg freezing is age. I don't think there's a perfect age to do this, but I do think there's an ideal age. And for me, I would say thinking about freezing your eggs in your late 20s or early 30s is probably the ideal age because I think it's about finding a balance. You want to freeze younger, better quality eggs, but then you also want to put this against all of the risks of a medical procedure, the time that you would spend going through fertility treatment, the costs and the financial burden. And I think doing this at that age um, sort of helps balance the benefits and the risks. Also, understanding if you're at this age and don't see pregnancy in the horizon in the near future, in the next 4 to 5 years, that's where I think it makes the most sense. Now, a lot of people have recently been asking me, should everyone do this when they're in their early 20s? Like, should we be getting this for our children as like their university graduation present? Here, you can freeze your eggs and preserve your fertility for the future. And actually, my argument is I'm not sure everybody should be doing it at that stage. And the biggest reason is because I think the majority of people who freeze their eggs that young would never use them, right? They could easily, in their late 20s or early 30s, get pregnant on their own or use more conservative treatment options to get pregnant. So I think if you're doing it a little bit later in life, late 20s, early 30s, you're sort of more likely to need it and have to use it. Maybe not for baby number one. Possibly these are eggs that you're freezing for baby number two or baby number three, even. But I think that the benefits outweigh the risks at that time.
Well, that is a very interesting insight, especially because this is something that I think or even like maybe, I don't know if Mansi, but like I think it's very relevant for people who have chosen this career path because we're going to be like, still very fresh in our careers, in our late 20s, early 30s. So definitely very insightful. So
I do
moving,
think, oh, I'm so
sorry,
sorry. I
sorry,
just wanted
sorry.
to add something on that is that I think I was having this conversation recently with someone. I think it was Kiwi, and I was like, there is no perfect time to like kind of like get married and have kids, but then at the same time pursue your education. Like we have to be honest, healthcare is a long journey, starting from pre-med that we're doing right now to MD, residency, fellowship. It doesn't end anywhere. There are people who are studying to like late 30s even. And it's like, how do you know that it's the right time to have kids? Because you know that's going to hinder your education in some way or the other. Even though we want to say it wouldn't, and I can like be a superwoman and do everything, but everyone has their limitations. So I just think that everyone who's watching this podcast probably knows that there might not be the right age, but there definitely is an ideal age if they have that future planning done already.
I totally agree. And you're right. There is no right time or perfect time or ideal time to have a baby. Sacrifices sometimes have to be made. But if you're early in your educational career, then at least the freezing of the eggs just takes a little bit of the stress off. I will say this, and I think it's a really important point to make. Egg freezing is not a guarantee. It's not an insurance policy. It's not an absolute guarantee of a pregnancy at the end of the day. And that I would say is the downside. I still think it's an amazing treatment option. And it's an option that's sort of taking stress away, giving women reproductive flexibility and a bit more freedom to pursue their aspirations and their goals and not feel the pressure of time. But I think it's sort of very important to talk about and understand the pros and cons and the downsides to any treatment.
I
So now,
definitely agree.
since we are already talking about like, having children later in life, let's talk about the phrase we're all hearing, advanced maternal age. It sounds terrifying, but is it really? How do you reassure patients who are thinking of starting a family like a little later?
Yeah, so I guess it depends on what you call a little later, but let's talk ages specifically and let's get some reassurance. So, I think the biggest thing around advanced maternal age, or what I like to call advanced reproductive age, because it's your reproductive organs, specifically your ovaries and your eggs, that are aging. And why is this such a big deal? So I touched upon this earlier, but the meat of it is that people with ovaries are born with all of their eggs. As they age, they go down in egg quantity and egg quality. So numbers and quality. Things start to change more quickly in your 30s. So it starts to go more quickly around 35 and more so around 37. Yes, we hear these numbers, but I don't want people to get scared by them. Nothing happens on your 35th birthday. But the idea is you want to seek help faster, do things to learn about your fertility, and potentially overcome factors or treat factors that are playing a role. So, where by definition, we used to say, oh, infertility is 1 year of trying to conceive and not succeeding. That's when you should see a fertility doctor. That may still apply to somebody who is actively trying to conceive at home and is under the age of 35. But what we're doing now, the recommendation now in women that are 35 and older, is that you seek fertility testing and treatment after 6 months of trying to conceive because we understand that age and the impact on egg quality and quantity is there more so after 35. The reassurance I would give is there is help and it's talked about a little bit more now. I still think there's ways to go and to improve the conversation, but seek help faster. Learn about your fertility, either on your own if you're doing this on your own or with your partner, because factors can come from both sides. But see a fertility doctor. Have a full workup done for both of you. Understand outside of age what other factors could be playing a role, and then understand what your treatment options are to help improve your chances so that that impact of age perhaps is playing less of a role or can be counteracted a little bit.
I agree with you, and it was so insightful and so informational. It's become so much more common nowadays to have kids later on in life, which was kind of looked down upon back in the day, because I have heard my grandmother kind of not like people who have babies later on in age. So educating people is the right way to go, and this is one way to do it for sure. And just jumping on to my next question, it comes from this is something that I've seen a lot on YouTube and social media where influencers kind of talk about their infertility journey throughout. And I've seen that like fertility journeys aren't just physical, they're emotional roller coasters. So, what are some of the biggest emotional or psychological things you have seen patients go through during the treatment?
Yeah, Monty, I think that is a really important topic that you're bringing up. And I'll be really honest, as their medical doctor, they're not necessarily talking about it in depth with me, but I think there are a lot of emotional or psychological factors that are playing a role. For example, sadness. A lot of people, whether they're doing fertility treatment and preserving their fertility, or whether they're doing infertility treatment because they're having difficulty conceiving, there's a lot of sadness, frustration, anger, because you don't necessarily want to be in this position and having to go through this treatment. Isolation, because even now where conversations around fertility are increasing, I hear so often from my patients that they don't have anyone to talk to. They can't talk to their friends. They don't want to share with their family. What will people think? So I think sadness, frustration, anger, isolation are big ones. Um, I think or I hope that as conversations continue, that stigma around this continues to reduce so that people do have a support system going through this to understand you're not alone. Maybe a lot of your friends or family members are also going through this. And sort of just knowing that it isn't just you is a big one. But I think there is a big psychological component to this, and we can't downplay it. I talk a lot to my patients about how this is a journey and that doesn't always happen as quickly as we want. And it's about finding what works for you. So for some people, it's going to be meditation, maybe yoga, exercising as their way to cope. For other people, it's therapy or counseling. I have a lot of patients who I connect with fertility counselors in the city, and they find it really helpful because it's someone outside of their inner circle who gets it and who they can really talk to openly and honestly. For some people, it's watching a lot of Netflix and a lot of movies and just sort of tuning out that outside world. I think it's all about finding what works for you, but really figuring out how you can get support. Support groups are out there as well. So counselors, support groups, maybe a friend group. All of these are things to think about because the idea is to have a place to go to talk to, and people to lean on.
That does make a lot of sense, I think. Yeah, and I feel like with the uproar of kind of more awareness about mental health, these are very important factors to think about. So now if I were to ask you, like with your knowledge of reproductive health, if you had a magic wand and could instantly change one thing about how society views reproductive health, what would you change?
Ooh, I wish I had a magic wand. I'm on a mission right now, and my mission is to change how and when we educate. Right now, I feel like we're doing a lot of our education around fertility kind of late, like when people are already trying to conceive, already having trouble, and now I'm seeing them in the office. And what I hope and what I wish is that we start these conversations a little bit earlier. What you're doing, what I'm doing with my podcast or my TEDx talk, increase education and conversations earlier. I think that's one of my main goals and one of my main wishes, and something I would hope my magic wand could help me fix. The second part is to help reduce the stigma around infertility. As I said before, we need to increase conversations so people are not going through this alone, not feeling so isolated, and not thinking it's just them. I think that both of these things a little bit go hand in hand, but are two sort of big things that I wish we could change.
I wish I had a magic wand too, but I think that was such a nice answer because I agree what we're doing is a process, a slow one, but a process is a process regardless of how fast or slow it is. But if you had a magic wand, it would have been done like that. But Dr. Abrol, it's time to crank up the energy. We are diving into a rapid fire round. Are you ready?
I guess so.
All right, we're going to start off right away. To start off, what's the most common fertility myth you hear?
Ah, that the birth control pill negatively affects your fertility.
One book or movie about medicine that actually gets it right.
Oh, guys, I don't know.
There probably isn't any, if I'm being
I,
so honest.
I mean, I love shows about medicine, but they don't get it right in general. Although I will say, I've heard the show The Pit is pretty good and pretty accurate, and I haven't dived into it, but maybe we should all do that.
The bit it is.
Maybe this is like a good heads up for people. Don't believe everything you see on social media or on TV shows.
Except
Okay,
what you see on here.
yes. Okay, next up, ovulation tracker app or old school calendar. What's your favorite?
Ovulation tracker app. I
If
think they're great. They take into account your last 6 cycles or 8 cycles or 12 cycles to give you the optimal timing of ovulation. So um, I'm a big advocate of tracking your cycles even before you're ready to try and conceive, and then using that to time intercourse when you are ready to try and conceive.
Dr. Abrol, thank you so much for being here. You made fertility facts fun and fierce.
seriously, your energy, your honesty, and your passion are everything. We loved this chat.
I
If you're
really love
tuning,
this chat too.
Thank you.
I think it was very necessary and I've learned a lot. Um, and I really appreciate you being here and your time. If you're tuning in and want to learn more, follow at Kaajal Abrol MD on Instagram and check out her podcast, Fertility Doc Talks. Trust us, it's binge-worthy.
Until next time, stay curious, ask the big questions, and don't forget to follow us, Medlysis Talks, for more real talk with people making waves in medicine, just like Dr. Kajol. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.